We went to the theater, and saw 12 Monkeys, the newest Terry Gilliam film. Are you familiar with any of Terry Gilliam's oeuvre?
No.
He did this movie that I don't like called Brazil.
Not 11 Monkeys.
Oh, no. Oh, you should have made that joke. I wasn't sure if I would be able to keep up with this movie because I haven't seen 1 through 11 Monkeys. See, that's my joke.
And I stepped all over it.
No, you didn't step all over. I wasn't going to make that joke, but then you made a joke similar to that joke. That made me laugh.
You're rubbing off on me.
I guess. Sometimes.
Oh my God. No.
Anyway. So, we watched 12 Monkeys with Bruce Willis and Bradley Pitts.
Yes, we did.
It was all right.
Yeah, it was good. There was so much going on.
It's probably Terry Gilliam's best movie, I guess.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't really like Brazil that much. I don't like a lot of the stuff he does. But it was, it's based on a French film from 1962. One of the interesting things about this French film is the name I can't remember, something in French. But it's largely told through still photographs.
Oh, weird.
Instead of like being a movie, it's like a parade of still photographs.
I don't like that.
With voiceover telling the story.
I would not enjoy that at all.
I think it's cinema, whatever, the left bank influence or whatever, it's that experimental French cinema of the 60s.
Sure.
Anyway, this film. So what did you like about it? What did you like about the movie?
Okay, so I kind of liked how it all wrapped together. Mm-hmm. Like the end of the movie was sad, but appropriate because it fit with the beginning.
Yeah.
And, the acting was really good.
See, you didn't like, you said that you didn't like Brad Pitt's acting at first.
Well, yeah, I feel like he was a little over the top. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you think that was on purpose, so I take it back.
I think it was the direction because this movie basically the bare bones plot of this movie because it's very serpentine. There's a lot going on, but the bare bones plot of this movie is in 1997. There's a huge pandemic that kills 5 billion people, almost the entire population.
That's insane.
Of the world. Yeah, it's not good. And then, like human beings the ones that survive go underground. So they're spending their whole lives inside, underground. They can never go outside. They can never see the sky and stuff like that. They can never breathe the fresh air. They don't socialize very much with each other because they're all underground. Sounds horrific.
Yeah.
Like just a complete dystopian future. And...
God, can you imagine being locked up and away from everybody for, like, long periods of time? That'd be
terrible.
Terrible.
So this dude, Bruce Willis, is... I think, what's his name? James Cole or something like that? Or, he is a prisoner.
Which we don't know why.
No, they just said he has a history of violence and stuff like that.
So, like, he's not a good guy.
Not really, no. But he's our hero.
Yeah.
He's a prisoner, and they ask for quote-unquote volunteers. It's mandatory volunteer duty for people from time to time, and apparently none of the volunteers have ever come back.
But he does.
No, he doesn't. Doesn't come back to his cell.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about with Jose, his cellmate or whatever, that no one ever comes back. And so... yeah, the plot is there's a bunch of scientists at this facility, this prison, and they have figured out a way to travel through time. They say many times They can't stop the virus. That's not their objective is not to stop the virus.
Right.
Because it's the past. It's already happened.
They can't change the past.
Yeah, basically their point of view is, like this, all this stuff's already, it's a causality thing. All this stuff has already happened, therefore we can't change it. What we want to do is figure out who releases this virus. They think that it's this army of the 12 monkeys that release this virus. And they want to know who does it because they need to study the pure form of the virus before it mutates. Because if they do that, they can come up with a cure to the virus, a vaccine or something like that, and then human beings in the present for them, which is 2035, can go back to the surface. They can live on the surface again. How this virus is still alive on the surface of the Earth if there's no people to infect on the surface of the Earth?
Almost 40 years later.
I don't know. I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me, but okay.
Well, they said the animals took over again. And we see that, too, like when he first goes up to the surface, that there's
bears,
lions, and So,
and tigers, oh my.
And sometimes, rarely, but sometimes viruses can pass from people and animals, so maybe this is one that they share.
Maybe, I guess.
And the animals aren't affected by it, but they just carry it.
That's the only explanation, but it's real thin.
Yeah.
And if that's... See, that... Because it's so thin, that's something I think the movie should spell out.
Yeah.
But instead, they act like this virus can just live host-free in the air forever.
Maybe the person who wrote the movie just doesn't know anything about viruses, and yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be it. Because the movie this is based on, it's the apocalypse is a nuclear war. It takes place after a nuclear holocaust
instead of a virus.
And I think if I remember correctly, I think the reasoning that they send people back in time is to try to stop it, but they can't stop it. It's one of those causality loop things. But anyway, so predetermination. So that's the basic plot of the movie. They want to send Bruce Willis back in time to find the pure form of the virus. And you have to be mentally tough to handle going back in time because it's very taxing mentally.
I would imagine that would be.
And it's not entirely perfected either because they accidentally sent him to 1990 instead of 1996, the year we're now in, where they intend to send him. Yeah, this takes the movie takes place in 1990, 96, and 2035. And at the end of at the end of 96 because the virus gets released around Christmas time 1996. So a little less than a year from now.
Yeah. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah. But anyway, so he goes back in time and he's trying to figure this out. He meets Madeline Stowe and
he meets her because he's a mental patient and she's his psychiatrist. Let's not act like it's a cute situation.
So, I mean, instead of going through the whole plot of the movie really, which is something that we try not to do.
Because movies are so very long.
Yeah, we'll talk about I want to talk kind of about the themes. So they mention the Cassandra complex, which for those of you that don't know, the Cassandra complex is a Cassandra in Greek myth, as they explain in the movie too, was a woman cursed with knowing the future but not being able to change it, and no one believes her. She tries to warn people about the future, and no one believes that she actually can see the future, and so nothing changes. So she's, burdened with the gift of foreknowledge. So the Cassandra complex is the belief that you know what's going to happen, and no one believes you. Or the predicament of actually knowing what's going to happen and no one believes you, which is what Bruce Willis is going through in this movie. So that's one of the themes is, the Cassandra complex and predetermination, fate, stuff like that. Those are big themes in the movie. Because Bruce Willis has this vision from when he was a kid at an airport, seeing this guy get shot and killed. And it was like one of the last things that he remembers before they all go underground and stuff because of the virus. And it like occurs to him over and over again.
Yeah, it's all through the movie. And like as he meets people in the movie, their faces become part of it. Whereas before they weren't as well defined.
Yeah. And Madeline Stowe is one of the women in like screaming and stuff, but she's got blonde hair instead of her black hair. And it turns out at the end, like I said, if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie, then watch
Stop listening to us and go watch the movie and come back.
Don't be a maniac. But it turns out that it's Bruce Willis as an adult getting killed.
He sees himself
by the police. So
killed.
As a little boy, he witnesses his own death.
And he doesn't realize that that's what he's witnessed. Until the very end, too. Like, I think... And why does Jose, right? Jose brings him the gun.
Yeah. So they find out. So he goes earlier in the movie. He goes to this mental hospital where Brad Pitt is, and Brad Pitt helps engineer his escape. And Brad Pitt's the leader of this army of the 12 monkeys, and they're doing all this down with the man corporate like kind of
espionage
stuff. Yeah. And his dad is this big virologist. So everyone thinks that he's the one that does it. And all the scientists in the future think that he's the one that does it. But the reason they think that is because the clues they're getting are from Bruce Willis and Madeline Stowe, who are acting on the evidence that they've already presented.
Yeah.
So that's what like a causality loop is.
Right.
Because it's almost like a paradox. Because they did it, then that stuff gets sent to the future and it leads them on the path, which is what influences the future. It's a weird kind of causality thing. But it turns out that it's not. It's David Morse, who was on St. Elsewhere. Should I?
No.
Oh, I didn't do it.
No, you should not.
One of these days, I'll play it again and I'll get you all.
No.
But yeah, David Morris, who was on St. Elsewhere as Dr. Morrison, Dr. Jack Morrison.
So the 12 monkeys, all they really do is release animals from the zoo.
Yeah.
Which kind of starts the animals taking over, I guess.
Yeah. They release the animals from the zoo and they put his dad, Christopher Plummer, into one of the cages as like hey, people are the ones who should be in the cages kind of thing. Fuck everyone. And yeah, so that's like the causality and predetermination, and it's that old story. It's a more complex version of that old story where it's like, someone's like, hey, I heard that death's looking for you. Mm-hmm. This guy that lives on the farm. Oh, I heard that death's looking for you and everything, and. He's like, oh no, death's around. I gotta, like, he says to his dad, he's like, death's coming for me. What am I to do? And he's like, well, run away. Go from the farm and go into the city and everything and stuff. And he leaves, and then like death strolls through the town, and the dad's like, oh, and he's like, hey, my son's not here. I heard you might be looking for him, but he's not here right now. And he's like, oh, your son? Yeah, I have an appointment with him in the city later.
Right.
And it's like that. That kind of thing where it's like it doesn't matter what you do, the future's going to happen as it's supposed to happen or whatever.
So he sees himself get killed when he's a child, and it haunts him his whole life.
Yep.
And that's what I said. That's what it begins and ends with. But the virus itself still gets released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's it. They tell us the entire movie, we're not going to stop this from happening.
The only good thing, the only like glint of hope is that one of the scientists then is on the plane with the guy with the virus.
With
so
David
you're thinking
Morris,
that maybe they're going to get the virus that they want, but you don't even know.
Yeah, I think the implication is that they get it, and I think the implication is they always got it. They always got it at that point. Mm. But they didn't, like, they knew they had to send him because he's the one that gets the information for them. But they don't, like, it's another causality thing. It's like they knew this was going to happen. But they all they can do is affect their future. They can't change the past. So they're going to get a sample of the virus, and they're going to, make a cure or something like that. And human beings will eventually take over the Earth again and continue to destroy it. See, so I liked this movie for a few different things. Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt are both excellent in the movie.
Yes.
Very good. Like I said, you said he's a little over the top, which I agree with, but I think that's the point. When we go into the mental institution, everything's shot at like Dutch angles, and everything's all crazy and shit like that. And I think it's a hyper reality of what a mental institution would be like. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine that any mental institution's actually like this, but this is like a big play up of what they're like. Yeah,
it kind of reminded me of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, but even more
so.
Yeah, than that. So, there's that aspect to it. And I like the acting between the two of them. Madeline Stowe is solid as she is in pretty much everything that she does. And like you said, I like some of the themes of predeterminism and the Cassandra complex and fate and stuff like that. And I like how the whole movie is a paradox. The whole movie's a causality loop. Like, not only does the movie talk about causality loops, but the whole movie is a causality loop. It begins with him as a kid seeing this murder because he's dreaming it. And then it ends with him being murdered and him seeing this murder happen. So the whole thing is like his life is one big loop like this.
And Margaret Stowe figures it out at the very end, too, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she looks right at the boy and stuff.
She recognizes him, yeah.
Yeah, weird that she doesn't just stalk that kid and eventually have sex with him.
Ew.
But I think she probably dies, right? Like, she probably dies from this virus.
Probably. And, they never did have sex.
No.
They never, they kissed one time.
Yeah, that's the other thing I kind of like about the movie is that it believably develops this relationship in subtle ways. There's no big things that happen that this relationship develops. It just kind of coalesces from them spending time together. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how most relationships actually form. But there are things that I think the movie's a little overly complex. I think the movie's a little over the top in some ways. Like you were talking about the acting being over the top. And I think that's not a fault of Brad Pitt's. I think that's the direction that he was given. But I think that doesn't work in this movie.
Well, when I was watching it, I'm thinking to myself, I'm watching someone pretend to be crazy.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it doesn't work as much in this movie.
I mean, I honestly, at certain points, was thinking maybe he's not crazy and he's supposed to be pretending so he can be there or something. But he was crazy in the movie. He really, he was less over the top about it when he was out of the mental institution, which I guess makes sense because he's obviously doing better if he's out of the institution.
Right. But yeah, I think, and like I said, I think that's a bad thing. I just don't think it's Brad Pitt's fault.
Right.
I think Terry Gilliam was like, no, play it like this more. I think that was like his direction because that's the vision Terry Gilliam had for this, especially this section of the movie. But I don't think it works. It doesn't work for me in this context. And some of the fugitive, like, we're on the run from the police kind of stuff also doesn't work for me that much in this movie. Mm-hmm. This would work a lot better as a race against the clock. It would also work a lot better if they thought that they could stop the virus. I think maybe Madeline Stowe thinks that. I think what it should have started out is, and what the character arc of Bruce Willis's character should have been, is the scientists tell him, we're sending you back in time. You can't change anything. It's impossible. It already happened. And that's his attitude. But as he falls in love with the world and with this woman, he starts to believe that maybe he can change it. Maybe he can have a happy ending, stop this virus, and live in this world that he loves for the rest of his life. And at that point, we as an audience could re-fall in love with the beauty of the world that we live in and nature and stuff like that. And I think that would make the the themes of like the destruction of natural resources and the abuse of animals and stuff like that, the background themes that play throughout this movie, I think that would give them more of an impact. And then it becomes even more tragic at the end when it turns out that the scientists were right, you can't change anything from the past, and he ends up dying. I think that all that works better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely I can see that, and I think that would work better. I don't think that at any point he thought that he could change it, though. I think that what happened, though, he started to think that he was crazy and that, it wasn't going to happen.
He thought he was crazy and that it wasn't going to happen, but Madeline Stowe quickly tells him, no, you're not crazy. I found all this evidence that you really are a time traveler. Here's a picture I happen to have from World War I.
Yeah, what the fuck was that?
That you're in.
She's got pictures from World War I all over her walls. What? Is she crazy? Like, why did she have that going on?
Her apartment looked crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little weird. But anyway, so she, she's like, no, you're not crazy. It really is going to happen. And their solution is, let's go to the Florida Keys. He's never seen the ocean. I want to see the ocean. Let's go to the Florida Keys, and we'll just sit out this virus there. And if it happens, then she says, hey, if by May or something like that, people aren't sick and stuff, we'll be really happy that we were wrong, and we'll both just be happy and crazy together. But if we're right, and it does happen, at least we'll be together, and we can be in this beautiful place and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. As the world ends around us. But to me, that's not hopeful enough. That doesn't set you up for, he can do this and then crush you.
Yeah.
At the end. I think to get the emotional impact that he wants, Bruce Willis has to believe I can stop David Morse.
I shed no tears.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a cool movie with a cool aesthetic. Mm-hmm. But I think and this is a problem with Terry Gilliam, I think Terry Gilliam cares more about the cool outer layer of his film than the inner workings of this world. And the emotional core. There's not really an emotional core to this movie. There's nothing you can really grab onto emotionally. And the movie didn't affect me emotionally.
Yeah.
It was, it was a cool movie and it was fun to watch, but it's not one that I'm going to be like, hey, this is going to live in my heart and my brain for a long time.
Well, he's not a great hero.
No.
Because, and he, with his bare hands, kills more than one person on screen.
Yes.
That may or may not have deserved it. I mean, the one guy was going to rape her, so whatever. But, yeah, he's definitely a violent, scary dude.
And that would be fine as an anti-hero type thing. That would be fine if, like I said, there was more of an emotional core to this movie.
Yeah.
And like I said, we could parallel him falling in love with the world, which we get a little glimpses of. Because he's like, oh, I love breathing this air and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. With falling in love with her. Those two things could parallel. And, there could be a good emotional core to this movie, but there just really isn't.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, that is our episode for the week. We are happy to be back. We're hoping that you're happy to have us back. But Carol, why don't you tell the people once again in 1996 what they need to do?
So go ahead and tell your friends about the show.
Do it.
Write us at latefee1994@AOL.com.
That would be great.
Check out the website, www.retrolatefee.com. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk to you next week.
All right. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.